Dear friends and my dear students, myself Dr. P.K. Verma. In this fourth session of Human Physiology, I will today discuss respiratory system of human. In human, respiratory system contains a respiratory passage comprising nasal chambers, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, lungs, as well as the thoracic chamber inside which the lungs are situated. Therefore, to understand the functioning of this system, every organ should be studied in details. See, it is a diagram showing respiratory system. These are the nasal chambers through which air comes into pharynx, and from here it enters into larynx, trachea, and then into bronchi. There are three lobes of lungs in the right side, but only two lobes in the left side. Here is a notch in which the heart is bent towards the left side, pushing the lungs deeper. Ventrally or posteriorly, in case of human, there is a diaphragm. Now come to see the nasal chamber. There are two separate nasal chambers opening externally by nostrils. These are provided with nasal hairs that act as coarse filter and do not allow the insects and other larger particles to enter into nasal chambers. Inside each nasal chamber, there are three coiled but thin turbinal bones, also known as turbinates or nasal concha. These bones are named as nasoturbinal, ichthyoturbinal, maxilloturbinal bones. In this diagram, you can see the turbinal bones in blue-green color. To the nasal bone, the superior turbinate or the nasoturbinal is fitted. Through the side walls, the middle turbinate or the ichthyoturbinal are fitted, and to the upper jaw, that is near the maxilla, the inferior turbinate or the maxilloturbinal bones are fitted. These turbinal bones are also called superior, middle, and inferior turbinates. These are fitted with a cnidarian membrane containing mucus cells, serous cells, and sensory cells. The mucus cells secrete mucin, a viscous substance, and prevents desiccation of the epithelium. Mucus also adheres dust particles and act as fine filter. If the air is dry, such as in winter, the serous secretion secretes more and more water to maintain humidity of inhaled air. The water also dissolves volatile chemicals, and its nature is tested by the sensory cells present in cnidarian membrane. However, if some dust, some irritating particles or chemicals come into nasal chamber, sneezing occurs to expel them out. When you sneeze, the lungs collapse very fast, suddenly giving a blast of air to move the particles out of nose. The internal layers open inside pharynx behind uvula. This part is known as nasopharynx. In the pharynx, the air passage and the food passage cross each other. The respiratory passage begins with glottis, a small aperture covered with a cartilaginous lid known as epiglottis. The glottis opens into the sound box or the larynx. It is protected from ventral side by a large cartilaginous plate known as thyroid cartilage or Adam's apple. Dorsally there are two such plates. Anteriorly there are two arytenoids and posteriorly there is a single cricoid. In between thyroid and cricoid, there are a pair of thick muscular bands called false vocal cords, whereas in between the arytenoid and thyroid cartilage, there is a pair of thin and tensile muscle known as true vocal cord. Vibration of the true vocal cord causes production of sound which can be changed into pitch and notes by differential tension of other throat muscles and the position of tongue. Sound is produced at the time of exhalation. See the diagram of larynx and trachea from ventral as well as dorsal side. The first diagram shows anterior view, that is ventral view. Here the superior thyroid notch and the thyroid cartilage is shown. It is more protruded in male but less in female. From the dorsal side or posterior view, you can see position of epiglottis. Below epiglottis in the two sides there are arytenoid cartilage followed by a large cricoid cartilage. In the trachea, you can see complete ring from the anterior view, that is ventral view, but from posterior side these rings are incomplete. So it is said that the tracheal rings are C-shaped rings or girdle-shaped rings that protect the tracheal tube from only the ventral side. Dorsally there is esophagus and vertebra, so it is well protected from dorsal side. Epiglottis, thyroid cartilage, arytenoid and cricoid cartilage. This is the upper view to show position of various muscles. The thyroid arytenoid muscle is true vocal cord, vibration of which causes production of the sound. Now, the respiratory tract passing through neck is called trachea. It is protected from ventral side by semicircular tracheal rings made of cartilage. In the thorax, trachea divides into two parts and form bronchi. There are two bronchi in the left side and three bronchi in right side to connect the lobes of lungs. When they enter into lungs, branching occurs many times and bronchioles are formed. The finest bronchioles terminate inside the small air chambers of lungs known as alveoli. Bronchi and bronchioles have complete cartilaginous rings. In this diagram, alveoli are shown. In the left side of the diagram, you can see the opening of tracheoles inside the alveoli. In the right side, blue and red colored arteries and veins have been shown. The blue color is given to the pulmonary artery that takes impure blood or deoxygenated blood from right ventricle of heart to the lungs for purification. After gaseous exchange, the pulmonary veins carry pure or oxygenated blood back to heart in the left auricle. The lungs are two in number. The left lung is divided into left anterior and left posterior lobes, whereas the right lung is divided into three lobes: the anterior superior, median lobe, and posterior or inferior lobe. In rabbit, there are four lobes in right side. The ventral ones are right anterior and right posterior lobes, but the dorsal ones are anterior azygos and posterior azygos lobes. The lungs are covered by two layers of pleural membranes, the visceral and parietal pleura, and in between them is a thin pleural cavity filled with a transparent viscous fluid. The ventral compartment of thorax cavity is the mediastinum. Internally, these lobes have thousands of small air chambers called alveoli, lined with ciliated mucous epithelium. These are richly vascular and gaseous exchange takes place in these alveoli. These are the lungs in two sides. The left has two lobes, superior lobe and inferior lobe, and right lung has three lobes, superior lobe, middle lobe, and inferior lobes. This is the diagram of respiratory system of rabbit. In the left side there are two lobes, but in right side there are four lobes: the right anterior, right posterior, anterior azygos, and posterior azygos lobes. In this diagram, plan of circulation to lungs is shown. From the right ventricle, deoxygenated blood passes into lungs, and from lungs, the oxygenated blood are collected from left and right lobes, and they all terminate inside the left auricle. Thorax is an airtight chamber covered from dorsal, lateral, and ventral sides by vertebra, ribs or costa, and sternum respectively, along with their muscles, and from posterior side by a muscular dome-shaped diaphragm. There are 12 pairs of ribs forming backwardly directed arc. The first 7 pairs are true ribs, which are attached to the vertebra dorsally and to sternum ventrally. 8th, ninth, and 10th pairs of ribs are false ribs, which are attached to sternum behind the 7th rib by thin ligaments. The last 2 pairs, 11th and 12th pairs, are floating ribs as they do not reach sternum anyway. The ribs are fitted with external and internal intercostal muscles, whereas the diaphragm is fitted with radial and circular muscles. These two sets of muscles in ribs and diaphragm are antagonistic to each other. These are the ribs seen from ventral side. The median red structure is sternum. Here sternum is shown in the right and the ribs in the left side. The first 7 pairs are true ribs, 8th, ninth and 10th pairs are false ribs, and the last 2 pairs, 11th and 12th, are floating ribs. These are the internal intercostal, external intercostal. These are the 2 main muscles associated with movement of ribs. In addition, there are pectoralis minor and serratus anterior muscles fitted to the ribs to pull them upward. In the next session, we shall discuss physiology of respiration. See you in the next session. Thank you. Thank you very much.